Welcome to Voyager Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of Revell Star Trek Voyager, the Intrepid class. Scale is 12677. In this part, I'm going to be doing most of the prep work for the build, so preparing the hull and saucer sections to receive the lights. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So to begin with, I've got to remove the excess plastic for the windows, and I'm using my pin drill. Now, there's various ways you can do it, and I've actually gone over it on other videos, but I'll go into it again just as a refresher. My drill bit's a 0.3 drill bit, and I'm hardly putting any pressure on it. If you put too much pressure on it, you can snap the drill bit. And keep the drill bit as much inside the drill as you can. Don't have so much poking out as such. That way, that'll lessen the chance of breaking the drill bit. Now, each window is going to have 2 little holes drilled into it before I use my hobby knife to remove the rest. And make sure you've got a new blade when you're doing this. This is a number 11 blade for a scalpel that I'm using. But just be very careful if you're doing it this way. You can quite easily slip and cut your fingers. I do it all the time, but just be very careful while doing it. Interestingly, this scalpel hobby knife that I've got, I put tape around the handle just to give me better grip on it. And place the tip of the knife into one of the holes I drilled, and then just push in and draw the knife down to the next hole down in a straight line to remove the plastic. It takes a lot of time to do this, but it is worth doing. But just be careful, because you can, as I say, you can easily slip. You can either cut yourself or you can go over the line and go into the main body. Then once I've done a few of them, I'll reverse into the underside of the area that I've drilled, and just open the holes up ever so slightly. Basically, I'm just punching out the excess plastic which has been removed, and this helps open up the hole a little bit. On closer inspection of the mold of the plastic, in the original, in the first video, I said it was molded quite well. There is a few injection points, of course, that you have to deal with, but as I started doing this, I noticed some of the edges of the hull are a little bit uneven and rugged, so that's all going to have to be sorted out. But it's easy enough sorted out, but I thought it would be worth mentioning because in part 1, as I said, the molds appear to be nice and clean. They're not really. It needs a little bit of tidying up to do. Here, what I'm doing is making some holes for the locator lights at the port and starboard. Now, there is no markers on the ship for these. You would have to look at some stock photos to find out where they are, but the photos that I looked at are very good, so I was able to get a good point where these going. Now, I'm using a bigger drill bit here just to open these up a little bit more. And if you notice that the drill bit's sticking way out on this is because I need this to marry up on the underside. So once I get the drill bit in, I can push it right down onto the bottom, and then I'll mark it on the lower hull. But before I do that, I'm just having to measure up for the front of the hull, the locating light. This is a solid white light that's going in here, but again, there's no marking for it, so I'm just measuring up to see where it's best placed. And then once I've got the markings, it's a simple case then to drill the hole. I'm just digging in my knife a little bit to start with. That's just making like a pilot hole. The reason for that is sometimes if there's not a dedicated area for it, your drill bit can slip slightly. So this just helps center it before I make the actual hole itself. So as you can see, I'm measuring up here, and similar to the locator lights, these markings I'm going to be making here are for the windows on the side of the hull, the upper parts that you see. Now, for some reason, there's no molding markings on this part of the hull to drill out, so I've had to make my own estimate to where I'm going to be putting these windows. Now, I find that there's many different ways you can do this, but I find it easier if I measure out and then I'll use masking tape then to map out the areas where I want to drill out. This allows me to see clearly where I'm going to be making the extra openings, and also the masking tape helps the drill bit from wandering when you're placing it in. Or even though I do make a little pilot hole, it's double protection, as you say. But the mostly is so that you can see exactly where you're going to be putting the new openings before you actually start drilling. Because I've done it in the past where I've just made a mark and said, right, this is where I'm going to be drilling, and then I realised that I've been completely out on one side. It's helpful, especially on small raised areas like the sides here. I've just removed the excess plastic on the bridge area there. These are windows. They do have the molded area to remove the plastic on there, so that part wasn't so much of a problem. There is another locating like here that I'm just finding the centre for before I'll be marking up and drilling. Next step is taking the bottom section of the hull and taped it together, and now I'm using the longer drill pin drill bit, and I'm just placing it in the holes that I made earlier on and pushing it down to the locator positions so they marry up with the top one. Then once that's done, I was then able to proceed and remove the windows on the bottom part of the hull. And here I'm using a little bevel tool. These tools are for clay work and things like sculpture. I'm not a sculptor, but I just have them because I find they're nice handy little tools to have. And I'm just moving the excess plastic on the inside. Sometimes the plastic can be a little bit thick, so I need a little bit harder tool for the job. Now it's onto the lower section of the hull, and as you can see there, I'm just tidying up where the seams are going to be. If you look closer, you can see the sort of jagged edge along where the seam line is. It's not perfect, and it will need a lot of cleaning up. And it's like everything else. I use my knife or side cutters to take away the excess. Then I'll just use a little sanding stick then to take away anything else and leave it as smooth as possible. And then I'll begin the same process of drilling and removing the excess plastic for the windows. So as you can see, there's quite a lot to do on the hull. There's more windows than you may think to do. Now, you don't necessarily have to remove them all. Of course, it's entirely up to you how you would like to approach. I'm opening them all up, but you don't really have to. And then it's on to the work themselves. Now, even though the top and bottom, there's quite a gap in between them, so each one will have to be measured up separately and drilled. This area here is where the shuttle bay comes in and goes, and there's a couple of locator lights that have to be drilled in. So I'm using the same method I did with the main surface section to marry up the both holes to get them in the same place. And once while the two parts are together, I should say, I'm just marking out where I'm going to be making the access points for the cable or the wire that I'm placing in. So I just mark them out with a pencil, and then I'm just snipping away any excess. Now, if you're doing this, double check each time you're doing it so that you're not going to be removing any plastic that you don't want to. And of course, just move little pieces at a time. Don't go in and take it all off in one go, because you may go too far. Also, it's a good idea when you're doing this to always check your alignment as you go along. So stop, get everything lined up, make sure that you're happy with the position before carrying on. If you do make a mistake, there's always filler, of course, but it's better just to add a little bit of filler than lots of it. And lastly, it's for the pylon struts. Now, on these pylon struts, there's the impulse engines, and the housing for these are embedded inside the struts. So these will have to be removed if you lighten them up. Now, this can be very awkward. As you can see, my gloves are ripped there because of the amount of pressure I'm putting on here. I'm using a robust drill bit so that I don't break it. But it's got to be small enough as well to fit between the slats. If you can see the one I'm not working on the mat, you can see they're very thin slats. And then in between that, that is where I've got to remove the plastic. But essentially, it's the same process that I've used throughout the drilling process and prepping of the kit. Now this is where I'll end part 2 in this, and I've basically done a video about drilling holes. Who would have thought that was a thing? But just to give it a little bit of scope, this took about a week and a half to do in total, drilling out all these holes. There's a lot to do, and they do take a long time to cut out and drill out. So as I said, this is where I'll end part 2. And if you haven't done so already, why don't you nip over the channel and have a look at my other builds. There's a few Star Trek builds on there if you're interested in that sort of thing. I am, hence why I always do them. But if you're wanting to know about the process a little bit more, jump onto one of those more completed builds logs, and then you'll see the same sort of process anyway. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you're seeing, and please do so. And if you do subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this build, but all my other builds in the future as well, of course. Hit the like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. And of course, you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.